Hey there, Marcus here. Today I'm gonna talk about it's not actually a workflow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up and use something called the AI Interpolator post-OB processor. So that's the module you see here. And what this does, it basically opens up the AI Interpolator for API usages. So Drupal comes with a lot of it comes with JSON API, but you can also basically extend it to use any API service. And for those that don't know, I will just introduce this first. What you're seeing in front of you is a vanilla Drupal site. I've added admin toolbar, I have added the AI Interpolator modules, and these are the extra features that I add on top of Drupal then that I have developed that are open source. What I am gonna show you today is then very different from what I show normally. So normally I show just how you connect, different AI services together. In this use case, I'm gonna show you how you can set up from scratch API service instead, where you can basically take single input, multiple inputs, use AI services or other kind of processors on this to change this content into something else. So in this case, I'm gonna make something that's very stupid, nothing that makes really sense. I'm just gonna create articles from one sentence and an article and article image using OpenAI and DALL-E in this case. The AI Interpolator has a lot of services. We're up to 14 now, I think, that you can basically chain. So there's a lot of use cases for it. I've started creating videos for it, but this there's so much ways you can basically combine this that are not documented that I haven't done videos for, but there will come more and more videos when I have time basically. But there's probably hundreds of use cases where you can actually combine this into different services. So it could be, it's completely multimodal. You can take anything. You can input a text, you can input a audio file with someone talking, you can input an image that you want to describe, do multiple steps there where you can do stuff that gets outputted as text, as images, as audio, full audio, and I mean truly podcast you can generate. So say that you want to, I've seen these services available where you can, for instance, input a URL and after some time you get a podcast outputted, right? Where 2 people or 3 people are talking about the subject in this article. This is super simple to set up the whole backend. You will just have to focus on the front end in this case. So the reason to use API then is, of course, you might first of all not want to use the Drupal front end. You might want to run Drupal headless and then generate the front end using React, Angular, Vue, something like that. But it's also, Drupal is very opinionated. Not everyone likes CMS or CMF systems. So of course, if you built a system in some other tool that you prefer, even if you could be outside of PHP world, even, write something Node, write something Java, whatever. Yeah, you can still use the Drupal and the AI Interpolator to combine all the different AI stuff via a GUI. And the advantage of that is, of course, that AI is not deterministic, right? If I set up a database, set certain indexes, and ask it to store something, I know exactly what will happen. That's deterministic. I know the output I get if I do a GET request to it. If I write a specific function, I might add a bug into the function, but usually I know what I input and what I am supposedly getting as output. With AI, it's not like this. You can guess what you're gonna get as output, but it might not be true, and then you might want to chain a lot of stuff. So if you take the podcast example, what you need to do with AI, if you don't have the AI interpolator, you need to use something like a scraping tool. Or let's take it another step. You want to search and research some news fad of the day. So say yeah, whatever it can be. There's a volcano being exploding now that might explode in Iceland. So say that you want to analyze 10 articles from this. You want to scrape these articles, you want to create a summary of this article, and then you want to create a summary of this summary, and then use this summary to create a script for a podcast. And with this podcast, you want to create an MP3 where multiple people are talking to each other with personalities and everything, right? If you're gonna do this using LangChain or something, you need to code. There is no other way around it. You need to know how to code. They're starting to get up chaining tools that you can pay for, but this is completely open source. Anything you see here, you can do afterwards. Of course, you have to pay for the services. They're not going to generate stuff for you for free. But as long as you pay for the services, actually chaining them and prototyping this, because since I said what I said, it's not deterministic. Something might go wrong in this chain, and you don't want to spend a week or 2 weeks to prototype something in JavaScript or Python or something, and then it turns out, okay, I can't actually get the end result I want. Instead, you can basically set it up in 20 minutes in the AI Interpolator. It's GUI based. Anyone can do it. The project manager can do it. The CEO can do it if you want. You just need to know how to prompt correctly, right? So it's very good for that. And because of this, I think there might be people that want to try this out with this, and then they find a product, and then they say, well, this is fine, we can keep it here. We don't want to spend the time on developing this, but we don't like Drupal. So we just keep that there, and then we can make an API call with inputs and get response with this output. So maybe if we take the podcast example, you're just going to make an API call that is just a search word, and you're gonna pull it until you see, okay, it's finished, and here we have MP3, and that's my result. And I just want to mention this because with Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, something happened where it lost its popularity among the masses, because basically it went away from being a hobby programming CMS, similar to, or I'm not gonna say hobby, that sounds like a very negative connotation. I mean, WordPress currently, you don't need to know that much about development, and you can create a really great website. And for articles, for blog posts, this kind of news sites, best content management system there is. Drupal went another path where they wanted to make everything enterprise. What is great with this is that the developers that work with it usually knows what they're talking about, which means that if you hire a Drupal developer, create a project, and that guy quits, if you find another Drupal developer, that person probably knows the same stuff. But what it's also great at is that it's a content management framework. That's why the GUI is not as easy to use as WordPress. It's not in general as easy to use as WordPress. There's not a plugin for everything. There used to be in Drupal 7, and that's what changed in Drupal 8, and it became more professional, more developer-centric, less site builder-centric. But what does exist, that there is a great framework for how every field looks like, which means that for AI services, this is already done. So if we need validation on an address field, this is already done. If OpenAI, since it can generate JSON, what is available in the AI Interpolator is that you can basically take a text, search for locations like Eiffel Tower or something, check these with Google Places, check that it exists, then get the address of it and map it on a Google Maps. So we're talking about really complex field that you can just set up within minutes using just a GUI tool. No development, no programming needed. So for this, the AI Interpolator is perfect. That's why I started looking at LangChain, and that's great. You can create something extremely sturdy. So if you're gonna create big data, if you're gonna create a software as a service where you have a lot of customers, so you have the money to set it up to work on a big development team, LangChain in Node or LangChain in Python is great, and there's so much more services. But if you just want to test something, this is fabulous. So as I said, this video is completely different from the other. I probably talked more in this introduction than the normal video is. I will also mention I don't have anything prepared. There might be some bugs on the way. Usually the videos are so simple that you don't see any bugs because it's so simple to set up the interpolations that there is no time for bugs. In this case, I need to set up APIs and stuff. So because of this, there might be bugs, but that's maybe good to see that not everything works flawlessly by clicking around, and I had a script where I made everything perfect. The only thing I will show you that I have prepared is basically the API requests. So I have tried those out already. So let's get started. As I said, this is Drupal with AI Interpolator modules. I haven't enabled this post OB processor module because I'm going to show you the difference when I do enable it. I'm also going to enable JSON API extras because this can do a little bit cooler stuff with JSON API. But let's get started now. So what I do have installed already is JSON API module. So this comes with Drupal core. You just have to enable it basically. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install this JSON API extras as well. So we have it up and running. This is basically how you install something in Drupal, add functionality. So this gives me better control over JSON API. This is what this module does. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to content types and I'm gonna create our, well, Drupal people knows it as content types. You can think of it as a workflow basically. So we're gonna create an article, right? It needs a title, and we can actually use the title as the prompt for generating our description and for generating our image. Sorry, there was a cut there. I got a coughing fit. So we're gonna generate our article, right? So we need text formatted long for that, which is basically HTML. Field, we're just gonna call that the article. So when you write this prompt, it's very important how you write this because it might be perceived differently by the AI depending on how you write this. So when you choose the amount of fields, when you're gonna write a prompt like create X amount of paragraphs, it might read that each paragraph should be its own value, right? So what you can do here is either you do unlimited field, save each in a field, or you make sure that the prompt is so exact that it will generate one field only. But I will basically do it in multiple fields now. So we choose full HTML. We want to add some HTML on the output. We enable the AI Interpolator, and this is what's gonna do the magic now then. So we use OpenAI text long and we base it on the title. And then we write our prompt based on the title, no, based on the context, generate an article that is around 12 paragraphs long. You may use HTML fields tags. Tags, it is like headers, PEIM, P strong. We have the context. Then under advanced settings, sorry about that. So under advanced settings, we're gonna choose GPT-4 because we want it basically in this case to take a little bit longer to showcase what the post OB processor is doing. So this is for long-running API requests. If you have AI stuff that can answer within a second or so, you don't need this basically. And then you see interpolator workers, and that's the normal workers that comes with the AI Interpolator. So in the showcases, I always use batch because that's very visual. It's using JavaScript to cut up all the jobs into a queue basically. Make sure that nothing times out. So if you have a CDN or Apache or Nginx timing out, it's not gonna happen. But anyone sending an API request can't run JavaScript, of course. This means that that's not available. So what you can do instead, you can run it on cron. But then it's very important, of course, that the cron jobs runs often enough. So if you run every minute, then it's probably okay. But if you run every hour, it's gonna suck if someone asks a request that they want to create an article and then they have to wait 1 hour. So what we can use from the beginning is direct, and that means basically when you do the request, it's running in the background, right? Taking time, which is not super for API, but it kind of works. Depends on if you have a long timeout or not on your CDN, Nginx, Apache, so on then. So I added the article with this. Now I'm just gonna add an image then that we call the article image. We're gonna save this. We just need one image. There's a lot of fields here, you see. That's basically what comes with Drupal and why Drupal is very good for content, as I said before. We're gonna use the OpenAI DALL-E to generate the image. We're gonna base it on title. I'm gonna write generate an image based on the following. No, generate an header image for an article based on the following text. We put the context. Of course, this is gonna be very bad results. You need a better prompt, to be honest. And there is, I can do some advertisement here. Well, not that I earn any money on it, but there is the prompt perfect module you can use. So you use this service, prompt perfect, in between there, where you can take a simple prompt that generates a good prompt for DALL-E. So you see the example here using spaghetti bolognese, and you get this great prompt for DALL-E, for instance. That's just another part of the chain, right? Same thing here, direct 100, we do DALL-E 3, so it takes some time. Save that, we don't have to change any settings. I can show you first manually how to create this then. And this is now based on the title I write here. So I'm gonna write Obama like poems. It's gonna create an article on this now then. And while we're doing this then, I'm gonna show you how to set up the JSON API. So this is, the JSON API is already set up actually. It's set up here. And you can see the different things that gets exposed by default. And then you can of course turn off stuff. So there's gonna be something called node, which is what the article is, and this is available here. So this doesn't have anything yet, but it's gonna soon have something. But say that I want to make this a little bit nicer now. What I can do then is the following. Take some time. So that's what I'm using this JSON API extras for that I enabled. Let's see here if we do admin. We go to web services here, JSON API. And so this do take some time, but there we see it's finished. Let's see if we have a picture also. That is nothing to do with Obama. As I said, this is a very, very bad prompt, to be honest. but you can see here at least it has generated all the article paragraphs, and you see it generated it then one by one, and you can read it here, Obama and his connection to his poetry and so on. Since I didn't add any context, of course it's making up everything. Anyway, here we have the JSON API settings. Then we're gonna accept, create, read and everything, right? Because we need to create over the API. It's under JSON API, but what we're gonna do now is we go to the article. So here you can hide different endpoints that you don't want to show, right? So I'm gonna put this under articles as the resource type article. I'm gonna hide a lot of stuff, so we just want the UUID because that's what we work with in JSON API. And as I said, JSON API is just one version, but the advantage of JSON API, and why I wanted to show this, is that I don't actually have to develop anything to enable it. And then you see here, if you use the field UI for creating fields in Drupal, it prevents everything with field, which is not so nice. So you should really not use this if you need something scalable. You should rather write this in code. But of course, for most use cases, you don't actually need to scale that much. So it's a nice GUI solution. You see there's an AI Interpolator status. So this basically says the status of the current processing. So I'm just gonna call this status to have a little bit nicer name to it. If I reload now, it's gonna be gone because, as I showed you, we moved it to articles. We're gonna look for file as well because there is an image connected to it, right? We're just gonna do the same here to nicen it up. So it is now stored under files instead, and it's called a file. Let's see here, we need the URI, basically that's what we need. And if we save this now, what we can do is using JSON API then for let's see here, including stuff. Where did you go? Here, article file. So I'm gonna include the article image now, and then you can see it has included the image here also. So if I go to this one, there are ways you can make it absolute, but yeah, here you have the image then. So now we have set up everything. We have the API. There's one more thing I need to do now. So there is authentication module for API in Drupal from Mini Orange. It's here even, I have it in history. So it's called REST API authentication. So there you can set up any authentication layer you want, right? So OAuth, JOT tokens, everything. However, in this case, I don't want to showcase this. This takes some time. So what I'm gonna do instead is something you should definitely not do. That's that I go into permissions here. And here you can control who can do what. So we have a role called content editor, and they should maybe be able to create new content. But what I do now is I allow anyone to create content. I can just show you before, because I have my JSON API here, where I'm gonna then send to the same endpoint Biden-like poems, right? So if I send this now, you're gonna see it's forbidden 403. But if I save now, because now I allow everyone, then I can save, and you see it starts responding basically. And the problem now then is this. Nothing happens, right? It takes forever, because it takes forever to create this. And if I go to the JSON API endpoint, it hasn't actually generated anything. It's still just the Obama article here. So there's no way for me to poll to check some status as well. But because it has actually not written anything to database yet. And this is then where the post OB processor comes in, and where it does its job. Because what the post OB processor does is the following. First of all, OB then, it stands for output buffer. So it makes sure that Drupal does whatever Drupal does, right? If this is JSON API, GraphQL, or if you're even using the GUI, it makes sure that it finishes everything like it does normally, which means it has saved the article, it just hasn't run any AI jobs on it. And then it makes sure that this is getting processed afterwards. So the PHP process continues running. It just outputs the buffer and tells your web server in Nginx Apache that, hey, I have an answer for you here, right? Output this answer, and then I continue processing here in the background. And this is of course very good for the use cases where you want to run the API command, get a UUID back. Well, UUID then when we're talking about JSON API, depending on what API standard you use, and then pull on this until it's finished. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna enable this. So we have enabled this, and what we need to do now is go to our content types again and manage fields, and then under the process workers we have post output buffer. So we just save this, go back to our example. Here you can see, by the way, it has generated something. We can, just for the fun of it, by the way, reload and take the second file included here. See how Biden looks. Still doesn't look like Biden, but at least he's an old man, so it looks a little bit maybe like him. So anyway, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna run Trump likes poems, and we're gonna send it, and then you're gonna see, oh, there's a response directly. So this is what the post OP buffer does, right? So now what we can do is this. So I forgot the S there, I think. Let's try. There we go. So you see it's still processing, right? Because this is gonna take some time. So what we can do now is that we're just polling this until processing is done, right? And this is what the post OB processor does then. It makes sure that your API service basically works like an API service should do. I will say that I can also add on top of this if someone does a feature request, that it could send a webhook as well when it's finished, so you don't have to sit and poll. But that is of course, yeah, something we can add later. So now finally you see its status is finished. We have an output here, and that's basically it. It has generated something. Can look at the image, I guess, by include article image, we called it, I guess. Just so you see that that was included as well. Yeah, well, he looks very pretty there, Donald Trump. So that is basically it. This is what this module does. It opens up the AI Interpolator to be very flexible to work with other systems, where you can set up the workflows in the Interpolator but not having to use Drupal if you don't want, or if you use Drupal and want to offer this as an API service, you can do this as well. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you like it, and if you like it, please use it. It's free, open source. And any feature request you can think of, any bug requests, just add them to the Drupal's website. Thank you.